Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Louisa. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and if you're coming back, welcome back. Today I am going to teach you a little sneaky trick about how to essentially disempower a narcissist, or more specifically, how to use their tactics against them. Now, this does not mean becoming narcissistic yourself, and it does not mean stooping to their level. Instead, you're actually going to be incredibly honest and forthright. Before we get into it, I just want to say from the outset that I do not recommend this if you are dealing with someone who is dangerous. The number one thing that you should always do with any narcissistic person, regardless of whether you think they are dangerous or not, is to put as much distance between you and them as possible. So if you are in a workplace with a narcissist, find another job. If you are living with a narcissist, find somewhere else to live or evict them. Never take anything that a narcissist says quite flippantly as an indication that they don't actually mean it, because narcissists will very casually bring up quite violent things and they make it sound like it's just a joke, but it's never a joke. They have actually entertained those ideas, and you don't really know how far they are prepared to go. Remember, you are not dealing with an emotionally stable person. This is a very unstable person with a pattern of flying off the handle at a hair trigger's notice. They might not even really verbalize some of the things that they are entertaining as possibilities for what they may or may not do to you. So don't play around with fire. If you're dealing with any legal hassles with a narcissist, then make sure to protect yourself, make sure to go through all the proper legal channels, have everything well documented, keep a distance between you and them, do not have any personal conversations, put everything through a lawyer or through the police, document everything, gather evidence, and make sure that you basically have them locked down. Now, assuming that you are relatively safe and assuming that this person is not too unstable, or at least operates within the confines of the legal system because they understand that there is more at stake than their own narcissistic supply, then just make sure that you are proceeding with caution with this. So the first thing you need to understand is how a narcissist goes on the offensive and the defensive. Generally speaking, with narcissists, they are kind of cowardly and quite insidious with how they behave. There are some narcissists that tend to be more open and bombastic, and so sometimes they will just confront quite aggressively out in the open, but that's probably less common than the more secretive narcissists. So most narcissists will do a couple of things when it comes to how they treat their victims. I mean, first of all, they treat their victims abominably, but usually in private, sometimes in public, and there's a fair bit of gaslighting involved to keep the person under control and to make the person wonder if it's them or if there is actually something wrong with the narcissist. So the narcissist will be playing these roller coaster emotional manipulation games with their targeted victim, and in the background they will be launching what's called a smear campaign against that person. So everyone in their collective communities, sometimes including the victim's own family, depending on how bad the family is, the narcissist might recruit them as part of the smear campaign and as part of the control campaign, because they need other people to coerce the victim into staying. The abuse is not usually done by one person alone. It's usually done by a community of people who are either narcissists themselves or flying monkeys. So that's the offensive strategy of most narcissists. Now, the defensive strategy of a narcissist is something called DARVO, which is an acronym. DARVO stands for Deny, Attack, reverse victim and offender. And basically what they do is kind of like gaslighting in the first part, where they deny everything. They attack the person who has come to them with the problems, and the person says to them, oh, I feel terrible because of this thing that happened. Like, why did you do that to me? And first of all, they will deny it, so gaslighting. And then they will go on the offensive against that person and say, well, you did X, Y, Z, so you deserve it. And then you've got the reverse victim and offender. So this is where they switch the roles. They take you, the victim, and them, the offender, and they swap places with you. And they make themselves to be the victim, and they paint you as the offender. And usually these tactics are so infuriating that it prompts the victim to lash out, because that's what any normal person would do, right? The problem is that when the victim lashes out and retaliates and, shouts and protests and does all of these things to basically like maintain their innocence and to say this person is being horrible to me, what that does is it plays into the narcissist's hands, and it actually reinforces the smear campaign that they've already been doing in the background to paint you as the unstable one, to paint you as the problem. And so you're actually confirming the smear campaign by doing that. It also, in the mind of the abuser, legitimizes all of the horrible things that they are doing to you, because they say to themselves, oh, look at that. See what a horrible person I'm dealing with. Obviously, I have to do all of these things to them because they deserve it. In the mind of the narcissist, your reaction to their abuse is vindication of their abuse, which is seriously messed up. So when it comes to dealing with narcissists, you actually have to override your initial instinctive responses to what they're doing to you. You need to be smart. One of the best sources of, advice on how to be smart with narcissists is Jesus of Nazareth. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." What does that mean? Well, essentially it means that you need to know your enemy. You need to understand what their tactics are. You need to have the wisdom of the abuser. So essentially, you need to know how they operate, but you need to maintain your own innocence, which means that you don't stoop to their level. So it's good to know how they operate, but it's not good to do the sorts of things that they do. You as the victim actually need to keep your hands spotlessly clean, because the number one tool of the narcissist is to try and catch you or coerce you into doing something incriminating so that they can pin everything on you. They manipulate you into being complicit in your own destruction. It's actually really, really evil. One of the hardest lessons that Jesus ever taught is probably found in Matthew chapter 5. "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you do not turn away. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust." What does it mean to love your enemies? Do you have to get into a relationship with them? No. Later on in Matthew, Jesus explains how to handle people who are actively, persecuting you. To give you some more context for Matthew chapter 5, we're going to have a look at Romans chapter 12. So this is what the apostles had to say about what Jesus taught. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in so doing you will heap coals of condemnation on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You'll notice the line there that says, if possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. It doesn't say that you have to live peaceably with everyone. It just says, as much as possible, depending on what you can tolerate. So in Matthew chapter 18, it says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother. But if he will not hear, take with you one or two more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he refuses to hear them, tell it to the church. But if he refuses even to hear the church, let him be to you like a heathen and a tax collector. What did they do with heathens and tax collectors? Well, they shunned them. So basically he's saying, go no contact. The first step of a personal dispute is to try and sort it out with the person themselves. Now, chances are you've already tried that. The next phase is to get witnesses involved, people who can maybe mediate or at least just sit in so that you've got an objective third-party observer. In the electronic age, that might be a little bit difficult. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But the third stage is to go to a public group, essentially to the community, and to try to get them to talk reason with the person. And then if they won't listen to the community, then you shun them. Now, obviously the trick with the whole community thing is the fact that the narcissist has already launched a smear campaign against you, probably even while you were still in the love bombing phase. They actually start it before there's any problems. Narcissists are always laying the groundwork for the demise of every single relationship that they have. So to your face, they will be telling you that you are wonderful and amazing and the greatest thing that has ever happened to them. And then to other people behind your back, they will be saying that you are the most difficult person they have ever had to deal with. So, how do you disempower the narcissist? Well, according to the Bible, you basically don't stoop to their level. The number one thing is that, if someone is in trouble, you help them out. You don't leave people in the lurch if they're homeless or about to starve to death, or, they're having health problems and they need a ride to the hospital or something like that. But at the same time, you don't want to get completely involved in someone else's life, especially if they're a narcissist, because one of the tactics that they use is to have constant drama happening so that they need you all the time. And what you can do as a good Christian is to refer them to services that they can use to get the help that they need. We live in a day and age and culture where that is entirely possible. It's not up to you anymore to provide for people. But at the same time, if your enemy is on the side of the road and they've got a flat tire, you don't necessarily just cruise past them. Depending on how dangerous they are, you might not stop, but you will call for help for them. The other thing that the Bible recommends is getting other people involved. So this might be contrary to some advice that you've had before in terms of how to deal with a narcissist, you know, the advice of just going grey rock, not responding to anything, not saying anything to your friends or family, just living out your life and living contrary to the smear campaign. And there's a lot of validity to that, so don't discount that as part of the process. There are some people that you probably should not try to involve. You certainly want to live contrary to the smear campaign. But what you really want to do is you want to employ the DARVO tactic, and you want to do it with as many people as possible. So if you've already tried, you know, talking to the narcissist yourself, which chances are you have, if you've already tried maybe going to counseling together and getting third parties involved, and they're still trying to flip the script on you, then you're no longer trying to reason with the narcissist. Instead, you are trying to win the war of public opinion. And the number one way to win the war of public opinion is to not be angry about what the narcissist has done to you, but instead to tell everyone how heartbroken you are. One of the ways that narcissistic victims kind of play themselves out of, you know, being recognized as people who have been wronged is that there's a lot of shame involved in having been duped by the narcissist in the first place, and also realizing that you wanted them to love you and they never did. And so there's a lot of shame about that, and there's this kind of bravado that comes into play when you want people to think that you didn't really want that person's good opinion in the first place. You weren't really trying to win them over to start with, because that makes you feel weak and vulnerable, and it makes you feel stupid for having wanted those things. And it's not stupid for wanting those things. It's just that you found the wrong person. You are not stupid for wanting to be loved or to be validated or to be respected. Like, even just basic human decency, it's not stupid to want that. What is stupid is to treat people like dirt. That's what's stupid, is the narcissist. They squander good people. They push them away, they treat them like rubbish, they burn them out. And ultimately the narcissist ends up alone. I very rarely see a narcissistic person at the end of their life surrounded by family and friends. So the way to use DARVO against the narcissist is actually to be really honest with people, and to be really honest with yourself, and to show that vulnerability, to say, I did everything in my power to get this person to love me, and all I've ever known from them is hatred. To say things like, I only ever wanted the best for them and I miss them terribly. To even question out loud to other people whether you feel like you even deserve love after the way you've been treated. Now, these are all very powerful ways to inspire sympathy in other people. It has the potential to make you look pathetic, but it also has the potential to make the other person look really, really evil. It's very understandable that victims of narcissistic abuse are trying to preserve as much of their dignity as they possibly can, and so they tend to not confess these things out loud to people. They tend to grieve these things in private. But I'm saying to you that you need to do it in public. Be strategic about how you do these things. So, for example, pick some of the people that you know who are the biggest blabbermouths out there. The ones that you know for a fact are going to gossip to everyone. You don't necessarily want to pick people who are flying monkeys of the narcissist, so be careful in that regard. But you want someone with loose lips so that they can sink some ships. Then you're going to get screenshots of some of the worst, messages that you've ever received from the narcissistic person, and you're going to send it to these blabbermouths and just be like, I really need someone to talk to. First of all, that will make them feel very important. It's kind of good to stroke their ego in the process. The message that you want to send with the screenshots is, I don't know why they never loved me. I tried so hard to get them to love me and nothing I did ever seemed to work. I don't know what I could have done to make them love me. I feel like I am unlovable. Now, the generic response that you are going to get from this person is some kind of trite response where they're like, oh, of course they love you. They're just having a bad day. At which point I want you to respond, if they love me, why did they do XYZ? If they love me, why did they do this? I don't understand. They said they loved me, but everything that they did told me that they hated me. And then you need to say the same point over again, which is, am I unlovable? Now, this could be a very vulnerable moment for you, but this is not a person that you are genuinely asking this question of. This is a person who is a useful idiot. Chances are they half believe the narcissist. Chances are they are just a gossip and they enjoy other people's drama. But putting them on the spot like that means that they have to actually actively defend you in some way. Because if their response is, yes, you are unlovable, then that's incredibly cruel. And you can say that. You can say that's such a cruel thing to say to someone who is suffering from heartbreak, and then block them. But chances are, if they are just a regular person, they will probably say, no, of course you're lovable. Don't think that. Now remember, you are using narcissistic tactics to trigger someone's sympathy and to trigger someone's protectiveness over you. You might think that this is being a bit manipulative, and in some respects it is. But you're manipulating people with the truth. You're being vulnerable with people about how you really feel. The number one thing that you can't do is to say there's something wrong with that person, they are a terrible person, I hate them, they're horrible, they're dangerous, don't believe anything they say, they're a liar, etc, etc, etc. Don't go on the offensive with a narcissist. Go on the defensive. You are making yourself as weak and vulnerable and pitiable as possible, because you need to present yourself as a bigger victim than the narcissist. And the narcissist is a pro at pretending to be a victim. So what you're doing instead is you're being as soft and lovely to people who I'm pretty sure you know have been talking about you behind your back with the narcissist. You need to be sweet as pie to them, ask them how they're doing, offer to help them with different things. You of course want to use the tactic of living your life as a contradiction to the smear campaign. So don't move on by dating someone, but move on by doing wonderful charitable deeds. You want to make sure that if people are talking about you, they have absolutely nothing bad to say. And don't forget to be incredibly publicly sad, even if you are the one that broke off the relationship. The one thing you don't want to do is try to seek vengeance or try to get even with the narcissist. As it says in the Bible, those people will eventually get their comeuppance, whether it's in this life or the next. You know, they reap what they sow. You don't need to avenge yourself, but you do need to prove them and the other haters wrong. And the best way to do that is to actually own the pain that this has caused you, to express the sadness that's actually going on. Don't express the rage in public. do that with your therapist. And perhaps a few trusted friends and family who really are clued in to who that person is. There are, of course, support groups out there for victims of narcissistic abuse, so make use of them. Never underestimate the value of peer support. It can be really helpful to talk to people who have been through similar circumstances. But when it comes to dealing with the people who are sort of in the shared pool of friends and family and maybe co-workers and people like that, then you want them to have a certain perception of you and to have absolutely nothing else to accuse you of. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next time. Take care. God bless. Bye.